I'm Matt Rezac, and I was on the planning committee for this conference. And my role right now is to try to kind of tie up some of the various threads that were started from the day and introduce another one, and then send you off into the final sort of event of the evening. So I thought, well, what better way to do that than to tell a quick story about Carl Sagan. So about 30-some years ago, Carl Sagan hosted this PBS television series called The Cosmos, where he sort of waxed poetically and educationally about, astrophysics and cosmology and all the cool stuff that he knows about. And I never saw this, but someone told me about it, and I thought it sounded cool. There was one episode where he had this huge kind of pot, and he put all these different elements into it, like nails and chalk and a bunch of water and several other things. And what they were all the elements that comprise the human body, in all the exact proportions that are in the human body. And he stirred them all up together, and he said, check it out, there's no human body being formed. And his point, of course, was it isn't about just having the elements available, it's about how those elements connect together to add up to something that's emergent and new, and a new kind of an organism. So I'm sitting there thinking about this, and I find myself at this conference, and Tom Koopoulos has this great quote where he says something about the thing that has allowed us to sustain over time is the ability to make connections, and the ability to make connections that actually build community. And I start wondering, it's not just any kind of connections. Connections by themselves don't do it. It's a certain kind of connections. And what kinds of connections are happening here at this conference? Are we doing a good job of making connections that really build community or not? We certainly have the right elements. We have a lot of people here, there's a lot of interesting folks, we have a great venue, good food, interesting topics, but is community being built? And then I saw Mark up here with his painting, being presented a painting, and I thought about the chances that I've had a chance to get to know Mark over the last couple of years, and on several other people in this room. And it made me think of, I would like to humbly sort of invite you for the rest of this evening and as the conference continues tomorrow, to do a couple of really particular things to try to help to make connections that really build community. And the first one is really simply just when we're introducing each other. You go to a conference and you say, this is who I am, and this is the work I do, and this is where I live, and these are some of my interests, which is all great. You got to start there. But then think about how can you push yourself to make a connection where you're really building trust and really building mutuality, and really talking about why do you do what you do, and what are the deep struggles and the deep concerns that you face in doing that, and what are some of those secret hopes that you harbor inside that keep you moving all day long, but that sometimes you're just a little bit almost embarrassed to share them because they seem so unreal. And that gets me to the second invitation. There was this great book that came out a couple years ago by this author named Stephen Johnson called Where Good Ideas Come From. And his whole philosophy theory was that this idea that sort of creativity happens when a lone genius sits in their lab or at their easel is really kind of overblown. And it's much more happens when groups of people get together and actually share their hunches. Like when someone's sort of half-baked idea connects with someone else's half-baked idea or a group of people's half-baked idea, that's where the real innovations come from. And so I would invite you to consider this a safe space to share those half-baked ideas, those intuitive, small-scale hunches that are inside, because this might just be a context where the next great innovation relating to the rural futures can transform those ideas into something great. The quick pictures certainly modeled this for us. It's really hard to come up here in front of all these people and say, hey, I've got this thing, and I want other people to be excited about it. And if any of you heard anything that a little bit sparks something inside, I really would encourage you to go and seek out the people who shared that. Tomorrow, there's going to be tons of other venues for you to share your hunches through these highly participatory breakout sessions that the Conference Planning Committee has planned. And I wanted to share and introduce one last really specific and great example where this kind of making connections that build community has already started to sprout out of the Rural Futures Institute. And that was through one of the very first teaching and engagement grants that were given out in the first round. And I'd like to invite Kay Sorensen and Mark Albrecht, who are from the University of Nebraska at Kearney, to come forward and share a little bit about the story of the grant that you received as yet another example of this making connections that build community.
Thank you, and thank you, Rural Futures Institute, for having us.
Absolutely. Go first.
Well, we are the first round recipients of a teaching engagement grant, and this fall semester was our first project in what we consider a far-reaching project building between students and community leaders. It was an academic, higher education, non-economic venture. It was bringing the students from their hometowns and partnering them with non-rural urban students into groups and connecting them with the stakeholders and community leaders from their hometowns.
And as you might guess, we're not economists. I teach biology. Kay teaches mathematics. So we thought, perfect. So we decided
Talking about half-baked ideas.
Exactly.
We just kind of came up with this last year when we were here at this conference.
And we got funded amazingly. So anyway, I think the upshot was we worked with the students to use the connections they had from their communities, the people they knew, the opportunities that existed, the possibilities that were out there. And I think they did a very good job of going to their communities and talking with business owners, mayors, economic development councils, chamber of commerce, and just friends and family they knew, and making a good effort to identify people who might benefit from a seed grant.
It was a short time period. We have results within the first 9-10 weeks of the semester. So the students from whatever community they were from, we didn't choose the communities, and the students were put into groups and brought the success that we're going to be introducing today. It was our hope that it is not only increased and made a greater awareness in our students, but brought the community leaders throughout the state. There were several dozen business ideas brought and kind of filtered through this real life number crunching in biology and math context to where we are today.
And I should point out that we had help from Mr. Caskey at UNK, and the students themselves voted on the projects, so it wasn't just us. Should we introduce them or drag them up here?
That's right, I think it's time.
Come on up here, you guys. We have the winners and one of the students from the course, people that we selected for these two grants. So come on up.
We'll start with Misty Stinson
yes.
from the Alliance Health. New business, it's a health food outlet in Alliance, Nebraska. And her student from my class, I have a finite mathematics class, Lindley Crawford, who brought the community and the university together, and you had a group of 4. You were one of a group of 4. So congratulations, you're one of our first seed grant recipients through the Rural Futures Institute. You'd round up of applause, please. Yeah. Thank you.
You did all the work. You did all the work. It's all about you. Thank you.
And secondly?
I was going to say, if you're ever in Alliance, health food store. Right? And then we have, from Ravenna, Nebraska, Ms. Christy Erweiler, who is opening a brand new bakery and cafe there. And she has a lot of experience with this, and her whole family's been in Ravenna for how long?
For a long time.
Long time, generations.
Way back.
And has family throughout Nebraska. And so she also is she's starting the business. We're just helping her start the business because of the presentation that the student group did, none of which could be here today, of course. But Christy's here. We thank her very much for coming in. So thank you. A round of applause for the second winner of our first season. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And that's it. We really, RFI allowed us to do this, so thank you very much. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kay and Mark, and for the grant recipients. Congratulations. Finally, kind of the final couple chances this evening to do this Making Connections That Build Community. The first is, immediately following this, downstairs there's a reception which is titled Collaborating Beyond Boundaries, Posters and Partnering. And there are, I think, over 40 posters being presented by graduate students and undergraduate students and faculty and staff within the university system, featuring some of their research that's relevant to the Rural Futures Institute and the Rural Futures Conference. And then in addition to, and this is kind of unique for these poster sessions as I understand it, there's 20-some sort of provocative questions that rural community leaders have brought forward from around the state and probably around the Great Plains, posing provocative questions that they would like to enter into a conversation with the university system and with whomever is interested as they are trying to break open those questions and find new solutions and innovative paths forward around these issues that are affecting in their community. So I would really encourage and welcome and invite you to continue the conversation downstairs, continue making connections. Hors d'oeuvres will be served, and there will be drinks served, and there will be drinks served.